everyone, good morning and welcome to here. Today we're going to talk about something, okay? We're going to be analyzing the intro riff of Enter Sandman by the Metalicas, okay, by the Aluminums. Yeah. We're going to go through the intervallic structure of the riff, we're going to go through the scales that it uses, and also a little bit of the physics behind why it sounds so cool. So first, let me play you that riff, shall I? Okay. So first of all, the song is in the key of E minor. And our riff is centered around these two octaves. So they're open A, E, and this E right there. Next, we move over to this G note, which is the minor third of the E note, or the flattened third, right? And we call it a minor third because this G note is flattened from the way it naturally is in the E major scale. And I'll link a video down below where I talk about how to name intervals if you don't already know. Moving on. So we're moving from the root of the key, so the E note, then up to its octave, then its minor third, and then we move over to this B flat note here, which is the flattened fifth or diminished fifth of the key of E. Then we move down to this A note, which is the perfect fourth of our key of E. Then we loop right back around to our octaves, starting first on this higher E and then the lower E. And so if we notice, this little riff here is an octave sandwich. Okay, it's an octave sandwich. It starts with an octave and it ends with an octave. And then there's some notes in the middle. Notes sprinkled in there. And so now, what scale is this? What scale did the Aluminums use? Well, since there's a flat third and flat fifth present in our riff here, it's using the minor blues scale. And so the full minor blues scale is a first degree, flat third, fourth, flat fifth, fifth, and flat seventh degree. And so now, which position of the minor scale are we using here? Well, it's using the D-shaped minor blues scale. So here's the full minor blues scale. And so you see how we're only using this small top half of the scale here? You know, it's just a little section of the D-shaped minor blues scale. And so now, since I personally like to see everything in terms of frequency, let's go over a bit of the physics behind why this riff is so freaking cool. Okay, so this open E note has a hertz of 82.41. And this E note, its octave, has a hertz of 164 and 81, which is exactly why these two notes are octaves. This E note is double the frequency of the open E note. And so basically that means that this E note here vibrates twice as fast as the low E note. And so these two notes are perfectly consonants. Okay, the octave relationship is the most consonants interval in all of music. And we establish consonants by how close the ratio relationship between two notes are to the natural ratio of the harmonic series. And this harmonic series ratio is a perfect match, okay? And I'll link a video down below where I talk about consonants and dissonance notes, okay? And how that all works. So it's down there. And so now, this G note here has a hertz of 196. And it vibrates 2.37 times faster than our low E note, which is our reference point, right? And we get that number by dividing 196 to the base reference note, which is 82.41. And so playing this G note is a little bit less consonants, okay? Which is why it adds a little bit of tension, right? It's a little tense. It's a little tense, needs a massage, you know? Then we move down to this B flat note, which has a hertz of 116. And it vibrates 1.41 times faster than our bass E, which is not very consonants at all, okay? It's quite far from consonants, actually. It's quite very far. In fact, it's the ratio of a tritone, which is the most dissonance interval in all of music. And so a tritone are any two notes that are 6 half steps apart, just like E to B flat. So it checks out, you know? It checks out. And so playing this B flat note adds even more tension to the riff. See? But not to worry, don't worry. Don't worry about the tense party going on right now, because then we land on this A note here, which has a hertz of 110. And it vibrates 1.33 times faster than our bass E, which is very consonants. Why? Because it's a perfect alignment with one of our harmonic series ratios. So this note right here, this A note, is the note that starts to stabilize the riff, okay? It starts with octaves, which are very consonants and stable. Then it goes crazy, okay? It's going on a crazy little emo phase of its life. But then it finds Jesus, okay? It finds baking, and it loves it. And it says, I want to bake for the rest of my life. I don't want to smoke cigarettes on stairs anymore. And that's when it lands on the A note and it stabilizes. Okay? And then it goes back to the octaves, which is extra consonants. So that's all. And so, by the way, that's why the blues scale is very distinct and very weird sounding, because it contains very dissonant intervals surrounded by very consonant intervals, okay? So it takes you through a little bit of a tense resolve journey. And that's what this riff does as well, okay? This riff is a tension resolution masterclass. That's all. That's Enter Sandman. That is the riff. That is why it sounds so freaking cool. And so that's all, everyone, okay? That's it. That's it, okay? I'm leaving. Lip gloss. I'm gonna go make coffee cake. You can't stop me. Even if you tried, you couldn't. You would have to take a bulldozer to my head, and I'd still do it. Did you know there's coffee in your cake? There's coffee in my cake too. Don't forget, if ever you see Alice Cooper at the mall and he starts yelling at you, you say, you take your Target bag and you walk your way back into the store and you return those items because those are not for you. I wanted those socks. I wanted the Peppa Pig socks. Don't forget to go to meganchurchmusic.com for the 70s and Guitar books. We got the 70s and Guitar Study ebook. It's a chord scale theory reference book, all organized in a cage system. And we got the beginner guitar guide, which is going to help you on your beginner journey. And they both have cookie recipes in them. Boop. And keep a lookout for the Key to Music Theory World Tour. Woo! I don't know if it's out yet by the time I post this, but if it is, I'll link it. It's a course where we go through the absolute fundamentals of music, how keys are built, what keys are, where chords come from, where scales come from, all that stuff. So, Key to Music Theory World Tour. Yeah, that's what it is. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thank you for being here. Don't forget, if ever you see a little bird in a little window, you know the ones, and you throw a pebble at it, and it chirps at you, and it says, oh, pebble, and then it thinks it's a seed, so it catches it in its beak, and then it eats it. And then it says, oh, you tricked me, you fool. That's not a seed. That was an insult. And then it calls its friends. And then they charge at you in the V pattern. And you say, I thought you only did that position to go to Florida in the winter. And they said, oh, you wish. And then they charge. And then they just peck at you. And you get little puncture wounds. Just remember they sell polysporin at the pharmacy. Toodles.